Hello and welcome to Z Pandem with Divyasri Bagrodia. I'm so thrilled to have Mr. Ashwin Sanghi here today. Mr. Sanghi is a leading Indian author and has written several best-selling books. He holds an MBA from Yale University and has received many prestigious awards. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and welcome to Z Pandem.
Thank you for inviting me, Divyasri. I'm looking forward to our little chat.
So everyone's been talking about the new normal and with everything going digital and work from home, increasing work from home. So how do you think publishing would change in the near future? And do you think do you see any new trends in in the type of books that are going to be written?
Uh, I have not been real, Divyasri. I'm not one of those people who has ever considered himself to be a writer. I've always considered myself to be a storyteller first. Uh, and because I am much more of a storyteller, therefore I believe that this entire space of storytelling will undergo a change,
Right.
not simply the world of publishing. Uh, in the sense that I think, take for example the world of the world of books. For the longest time, our biggest challenge in the world of books has been how to get our readers to turn the page, because we are nowadays competing for mind space. We are competing for bandwidth of our readers, because
Right.
our readers are perpetually being bombarded by instant messaging, by WhatsApp, by email, and so many other forms of entertainment. Uh, but going forward, suddenly when we are realizing that they have more time on their hands, suddenly we are realizing, hey, listen, actually people can sit down with a book and they could actually spend a little bit of extended period of time reading that book, which otherwise
Right.
used to not be the case. So frankly, I see it as an opportunity for the publishing world. Similarly, in the world outside of publishing, but still within the world of storytelling, you consider what is happening to the world of movies. I don't know when it will be that we will be able to go back into cinema theaters and be able to enjoy a movie with a coke and a popcorn. I don't know when that will come back. But in the meantime, if you look at the flip side, there has been a boom as far as OTT is concerned. So
TT,
whether
right.
it is Netflix or whether it's Amazon Prime or whether it's Alt Balaji or whether it's Hotstar, all of them have seen substantial increases in their user base. So the
Absolutely.
point I'm making is that, to my mind, possibly you may not find that your consumption of entertainment or your consumption of stories is exactly the same the way it was prior to the lockdown or prior to the pandemic, but to say that you will be consuming less stories would be factually incorrect. I believe that you will be consuming more. So, in that sense, it does imply some element of changes. You take, for example, the world of retail and distribution. In the last 3.5 months, most of the bookstores have had to be closed because most retail across the country has been closed.
Yes. Yeah.
Warehouses and distribution of books has also been closed. Now, of course, they are trying to get back on their feet. But by the time that a complete opening up occurs in India, there is very high likelihood that some of the bookstores will have gone out of business by the time that we reopen. Which means, in other words, that uh, if you want to consume a book, chances are that the percentage of people consuming books on handheld reading devices will increase over a period of time because of the lack of distribution and physical availability of bookstores. So there will be
Right.
changes. But the one thing that we know is that people are not going to be consuming less, they're going to be consuming more. I think this is a genuinely a moment where one can, where one can sort of spend a little more value. I think a lot of things which, have happened are related to the fact that this pandemic and this lockdown is giving us a chance to, in some ways, correct the error of our ways. You look at what has happened to the environment in the last 3.5 months. I mean, for me at least personally, the Bombay skies have not ever been as clear as they are at the present moment. We see that there has been a substantive effect on the amount of uh, uh, dirt and sewage that is being pumped into the Ganga, as a result of which there has been a radical change in the cleanliness of the river system.
Certainly.
I think the amount of time that we have at home and the amount of time that we are spending with our family is probably something that has also improved over a period of time. I think we are also understanding that we can get by with a lot less. I don't know about you, Divyasri, but for me at least, my closet, which used to have about roughly 15 to 20 pairs of clothes for my daily life, suddenly I'm finding that I can get by with 3 t-shirts and jeans. I don't need
Yes.
more than that. So suddenly one is realizing that one's material needs are actually far less than what one has uh, grown up with. We've grown up in this entire material mad race that I want this, or I want that particular bag, or I want that particular phone, and suddenly one is realizing that one doesn't need really all of that. So I do
Right.
see it as a wake up call for humanity.
Right, sir. Absolutely, sir. So, what according to you are some important skills, mindsets, and attitudes for Gen Z moving forward?
Uh, I I think uh, I think to a certain extent, I think this generation, your generation, probably uh, is a far more, in some ways, I believe you are a far more responsible generation than mine. Uh, and because if when I talk to younger people, I realize that they are they are talking with a certain sense of passion in terms of
Right.
the earth and being one with the earth. I find this a lot more in my son's generation, where they are actually focused on environmental issues. They are fundamentally focused on I mean e- I mean, I'm finding that there are young people who are suddenly turning to concepts like veganism because they feel that veganism is a way of the future. I mean, which was unimaginable for my generation at your ages.
Right.
So in that sense, I believe that you are a far more responsible generation, and I'm glad that you have gone through this period of the pandemic, because I see that this will fundamentally alter the way you all think about the earth and the resources and the responsibility of the human civilization, that we can't keep on consuming. So in that sense, I think you have two things going in your favor. Number one is the fact that you grew up in a world where we had already done a lot of damage to it. So it was an earth which was already on the brink of existence. And so to that extent, you had no alternative but to be responsible. And I think the second is this entire pandemic, which has brought home the reality that, listen, it takes 2 minutes for something to go wrong. And the moment we upset the delicate balance of nature, we could end up actually facing extinction. So, in that sense, I believe that your generation already has what it takes. And of course, the advantage that you have is that you all are very, very technologically aware, which means, in other words, that you will be able to use technology to its fullest potential in order to be able to deal with a lot of the issues that we are currently facing.
Hopefully, sir. So,
Absolutely, I'm confident of it.
thank you so much, sir, for your words of advice for Gen Z, and I think you have opened our eyes.
No, I just want to say that, I mean, I am one of those people who has always believed that the most harmful attitude uh, for any generation lies in the words I, me, myself. That is because the moment we start thinking of ourselves as individual and separate and distinct from the rest of the world, from the wider universe,
Right.
I think this entire period of the last 3 months or 4 months has brought us closer to to our vulnerability. It has brought us closer
Right.
to the notion of our mortality. It has brought us closer to the notion of how fragile the ecosystem and the environment is, how we can simply not afford to play around with it. Uh,
Right.
and I think if the human race wishes to carry on, then in that case, I think it makes sense to institute the required changes so that we can actually make our lives more meaningful. Uh, by that, I mean, for example, that for the longest time we weren't really concerned about how often we decide to take a trip by an aircraft
Right.
and go to multiple cities. I mean, before this lockdown, I used to be traveling about 12 to 15 days in a month. Suddenly I realized that I'm being able to achieve those very meetings sitting in the privacy of my home and
Right.
doing conferences like the one that we are doing right now. And so I suddenly realized that, listen, Ashwin, why were you doing that 15 days of travel before the lockdown? You could have easily done this even before the virus struck. So that has sort of caused me to rethink that, do I really need to be investing 10 to 15 days of my time in travel?
Right.
Similarly, for example, I think the notion that you can spend your entire life in terms of parties and socializing. Suddenly, all of that has had to take a backseat, and you suddenly realize that no, you need to live with yourself, and that living with yourself is a scary thought because today's generation Z, as you called it, is not used to living with itself because
Right.
it's all the time about communicating, whether in person or in the virtual world. So I think a lot of those sort of things are going to undergo a change. Uh, Even in terms of industries, your approach, like for example, I mean, I have a 16-year-old son. Prior to the lockdown, twice a week he would be out of the house, and he would be going out with his friends, and they would be sitting at some restaurant or the other, and they would be having fun together, either at a Starbucks or wherever else. The
Right.
point is, suddenly all of that has come to a halt, which means, in other words, that whether he likes it or not, he will have to focus a lot more on being able to go back to the simpler pleasures of life. So I think in some ways, we should treat this as an opportunity to simplify our lives.
Absolutely, sir. So I think that is a lot to think about, and
Uh,
right.
and that is precisely what our scientists of today are telling us. Quantum theorists are telling us that there is an intimate connection between anyone and everyone and everything. That you are not distinct and separate. So any action, any thought, anything that you do is going to be affecting the wider universe. The moment you start looking at yourself as a part of a much wider living organism, I think automatically your actions, your thoughts, your deeds are going to be very, very different. They are going to be proactive. They are going to be sensible. So that's what I would suggest.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. Thank you so much for joining us. Means a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. You take care and God bless.